Hey guys, today's math lesson is lesson 112, starting on page 710. And today we're talking about reducing fractions. Go ahead and look at the bottom of page 710. It says, recall from investigation 9 that when we reduce a fraction, we find an equivalent fraction written with smaller numbers. The picture below, it's actually to the side, shows 4/6 reduced to 2/3. So you can see in the picture on 711 that that 4/6 is equal to 2/3, but 2/3 is simpler. You always want, with fractions, when you're reducing fractions, the point is to make it the simplest fraction you can, meaning the smallest numbers possible. Not all fractions can be reduced. Only a fraction whose numerator and denominator can be divided by the same number can be reduced. Since both the numerator and denominator of 4/6 can be divided by 2, we can reduce the fraction 4/6. So 4 and 6 are both divisible by 2, so we can reduce 4/6. To reduce a fraction, we'll use a fraction that's equal to 1. To reduce 4/6, we will use the fraction 2/2. We divide both 4 and 6 by 2 as shown below. So you have 4/6 divided by 2/2. So you do 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2, 3. So now you're at 2/3, and that's in its simplest terms. So 2/3 is not, you cannot reduce it because 2 and 3, there are no numbers that 2 and 3 can both be divided by other than 1. Now, yes, you can always divide things by 1, but you're going to have the same answer. It'll still be 2/3. 2 divided by 1 is 2, 3 divided by 1 is 3, so you still have 2/3. So if the only number you can divide by both of them is 1, then it's in its simplest terms, okay? Now, what you want to do to get to the simplest terms, it could take you multiple steps. If you just divide everything by 2 and keep going, that could take you a while. You want to find what's called the greatest common factor, which is the largest number that both numbers are divisible by. Take, for example, 4/8. I'll write it on the board. Now, we know that 4 and 8 are both divisible by 2, right? So if I divided 4 and 8 by 2, well, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. Well, you can see that, I know the light's glaring. 2/4 is not in its simplest form because 2 and 4 can both be divided by 2. So then I would end up getting 2 divided by 2 is 1, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and I'd have 1/2. So the best way to do this is think, what numbers are both 4 and 8 divisible by? And if there's more than one, you pick the biggest one. So 4 and 8 are both divisible by 2, like we saw, but that didn't get it to its simplest form. So they're actually both divisible by 4 as well, and that's the greatest common factor between these two numbers. So I can do 4 divided by 4 is 1, 8 divided by 4 is 2. And I get to 1/2 much quicker that way by using the greatest common factor. So let's get into this with our example on 711. So our first number is 6/8. Now, we want to think, what is the greatest common factor? What's the biggest number that 6 and 8 are both divisible by? Well, 6 is divisible by 1 and 6. We know that. Also 2 and 3. Well, 8 is divisible by 1 and 8. We don't want to use 1. Can't use 8. It's also divisible by 2 and 4. The only one we can do is 2. So let's go ahead and get started with that one. Six divided by 2 is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now it's in its simplest form. 3 and 4 are only divisible by 1. Their only common factor is 1. We don't divide that. We don't do that to find a simplest form. So 3/4 is 6/8. It's equal, and it's been reduced to a simplest form. All right, with 3/6. Well, 3 only has 2 factors, 1 and 3. 6 has multiple factors, but 3 is one of them. So 3 is the only one we can choose from. So we're going to divide 3/6 by 3/3. Three divided by 3, 1. 6 divided by 3, whoops, 2. I had 3's on my mind. So 3/6 is equal to 1/2. That's the simplest form. If you get a 1 as the numerator, it is going to be in its simplest form no matter what, unless you did your math wrong. But you wouldn't do that. Now, 6/7. So 6, the factors are 1, 2, 3, and 6. Those are the numbers that, when multiplied together, equal 6. 7 only has 2 factors, 7 and 1. So what kind of a number is that? Give you all a second to think about it. It's a prime number. Good job. So when we have a prime number as our denominator, the problem can't be reduced. So 6/7, it's already in its simplest form. We could divide by 1, but we're still going to get 6/7. So that is already in its simplest form. So there are some that can't be reduced. 6/7 is one of them. In fact, any number of sevenths can't be reduced because 7 is a prime number. Same with fifths, because 5 is a prime number, and on and on. When a prime number is the denominator, it can't be reduced. So just a little trick there for you to know. And that's the only example. There were 3 in there though. So you can go ahead and do the lesson practice A through H. And some of them are already reduced. They're already in their simplest form. So you just write that fraction. This one is 1/12. So you are doing odd problems today. And as always, if you have any questions, let me know.